Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the 177th session of the online Optom Learning Series, OOLS. And for today's session, we have with us Ukti Vora. Ukti has been with us since the beginning of the online Optom Learning Series session. She took a couple of sessions on telehealth, optometry onto the platform. Just to brief you about Ukti's background, Ukti is an Indian optometrist. Currently, she's based in the United States. She is the regional product manager for Topcon Healthcare, and her role is to help develop and manage their telehealth products for the North American region. Prior to her role at Topcon, she was also associated as the director of clinical affairs for an ocular telehealth startup company based again in the United States. Many of us know Ukti as the Nerdy Optometrist. Nerdy Optometrist is the first ever Indian podcast channel which interviews people across the globe about optometry, how optometry is in the country, and a lot more. To find out more, I think you should visit her podcast channel. Over 50 episodes and over 2 years of experience put together to bring into the knowledge of optometry, how optometry is around the globe. And she has developed a community of over 5,000 plus eye care professionals. She is associated with various organizations, being senior program manager for Vision Science Academy, and has been speaking at various conferences nationally and internationally. She earned her master's degree from the Lotus College of Optometry and her MBA from the California State University. She is also a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry and a fellow of the Association of Schools and Colleges of Optometry in clinical optometry category. And today, Ukti has come back to us saying that this is a topic which a lot of people might be aware of or would want to learn more about it. It's blockchain in healthcare, and more specifically, she'll try to take us through how it is connected with eye care as well. So welcome back, Ukti, and let me just leave the screen time to you.
Thank you so much, Fakhruddin, for again giving me this opportunity, having this platform, and for the humble introduction that you shared. I really appreciate, and I always love to be back with OOLS. This is one of my favorite platforms to kind of talk about. And as you have heard in my brief background, that I'm very closely associated with eye care and technology. And blockchain is one of the latest buzzword which everybody has been hearing, specifically in the finance space. But I felt being in the eye care and the healthcare sector, it is very important for all of us as optometrists, optometry students, practitioners to know how this new technology is going to help us beyond, a finance sector and in healthcare or eye care segment. Before I get into the details of the presentation, I would like us to launch my first poll. I just want to understand those who have joined this session. Could you please tell me, do you understand the basics of blockchain as a technology? Yes, you do. Maybe you have had some idea, some discussions, or no, you have no idea, never understood. Everything felt like Greek to you. If so, don't worry. I'll try to explain things and break things to various simple way throughout this session. So with different examples.
I think majority of them says that probably they have no idea, and hence they are attending today's session, if I may put it that way. And a lot of them have a little bit of idea, maybe, or they are kind of confused. So that's the kind of information we have from the attendees.
Perfect. So in that case, I feel I have tried to kind of go to the very basic of blockchain as a technology. And I think this will be super useful for all of those who have no idea what it is. Feel free to also ask me any questions, and I'll be taking that at the end of the session. And for those who have some idea but some confusion around it, I hope by the end of this session, it will be clarified and, you'll have more deeper knowledge and information around it. So going to the history or the background of blockchain, though it has become a buzzword recently, but it is not something that has started just a couple of years ago. This was first introduced or mentioned in 1991, and it was basically a simple digital timestamp. What they wanted to do was make sure that every time any information is being recorded, you timestamp it digitally with date and time, just so that nobody can backdate it or change by going back in the system. They just wanted to have one proof of concept and don't want anybody to manipulate that information. That was in 91, and nothing happened after that. In 2009, a person named Satoshi Nakamoto was the one who wrote the first paper, a white paper on Bitcoin. And he was the one who started developing the first cryptocurrency based on blockchain technology, which we're all aware and we have known about Bitcoin. And since then, things have kind of grown enormously. And there are a lot of other smart contracts, applications, transaction, a lot has happened in the finance sector, and it has developed a lot of attention. So this is a brief history of blockchain, but going to what blockchain is and what we're going to discuss in this particular session, I'm going to try and cover these four major topics today. One is, what is blockchain technology in simple term, to have more clarity and discussion around it. How does it work? Who will manage blockchain, or how does that system even function? And how can it be used in healthcare or eye care? Here, I might use healthcare as a more generic term, because if it is going to come in healthcare, be rest assured it is going to be part of eye care as well. So don't get confused if I use healthcare or eye care. I just want to mean the healthcare industry overall here. Now, talking about blockchain, right? As a simple definition, here is something that I want to just I try to find the most simplest solution here. So it says blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. A blockchain essentially is a digital ledger of transactions that is duplicated and distributed across the entire network of computer systems on blockchain. So I'll try to highlight on a couple of things which I've already put it in bold. First thing is, it is trying to record information. What they're trying to make they're trying to make it hack proof, or something that is impossible to change. And it is essentially a digital ledger. So ledger is a term used very commonly in finance sector. For example, when I say, Fakhruddin, I'm going to pay you $100, right? When I say that, I will write in my book at that I have paid Fakhruddin $100. He's in Malaysia, I'm in United States. I'm not going to fly and give him money in cash or in paper, right? I tell my bank to give Fakhruddin $100, right? So I've written in my books, bank will write in his book, the bank will transfer the money to Fakhruddin's bank, and that bank will write in its own ledger, and even Fakhruddin will have a record of it. So as you saw, there are multiple layers or places where this information is recorded, that there is this one transaction that has happened. Okay. In olden days, it was written in paper or a book format. Now in digital world, we do have a digital ledger. But how does blockchain impact and work around this is what I'll be covering in the later slides. So in the heart of the definition, or the main crust that I want you all to remember every time you hear the word blockchain, right? For anyone, who is getting confused, or people who don't have any idea, these are the three things which is 100% should be top of your mind anytime you hear the word blockchain. One is decentralized ledger. So even though the term ledger is associated with mostly with financial sector, when I say ledger, it simply means a book of record. So if any data that I'm writing, I want someone else to write it as well. So there are multiple copies of it sharing the exact same data. So, and by centralized data or centralized ledger, what I mean is I want it to be everything, so it's everything is going to be more distributed versus just one person having an authority over it. The other part that is very important is it is protected by best cryptographic algorithm. So when we talk about encrypted data or something which I think everybody is aware about, especially with new technology, when you say end-to-end encryption, right? So when I say encryption is basically a special code language where only the person who has a key or the way to open that topic or discussion or a message, only they can see it. So when you have a chat or when you're doing a chat on WhatsApp, it has end-to-end encryption. What they mean by that is when I'm sending a message to someone, only I and that person can read the message. Say WhatsApp as a company or Facebook or Meta is not allowed or cannot see that data. That's what they say when you say end-to-end encryption. And cryptography or like complex algorithm is also based on something similar where they want to make it so complex that it'll be almost impossible to hack or change. And the other one is immutable linked. And we'll be talking more about it in the future slides. But basically, we want to make sure that it is traceable and it is difficult to change. Okay. Now, please remember, this is like the biggest myth around. Bitcoin has become very popular, but blockchain and Bitcoin are two different things. So Bitcoin is a product of blockchain. So we are going to focus on blockchain, which is the basic or the underlying technology, and the product or the outcome of that technology is Bitcoin. Now, blockchain as a technology can be incorporated in almost every industry out there. And we are going to be focusing on the healthcare industry. So just make sure that any cryptocurrency that you see or hear about, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Dogecoin, whether it's, whichever coin you hear about, they are the product of blockchain. They are not blockchain, right? So please make sure that you do not confuse yourself by these two terms. Now, when we talk about industry, though it is very famous in the finance sector, as you can see here as like the top 100 companies, you can see it is actually touching and it is being considered to be part of each and every sector of, industry, from bank and finance to supply chain to healthcare, insurance, energy, real estate. It has got enormous options and opportunity to touch each and every sector. And you will realize very soon how this will impact and why it is so important to be, and why everybody feels that this is going to be revolutionary technology that's coming up. So how does this work? So I'll try and break this down in as simple format as possible. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them, and I'll be definitely taking that at the end of the session. So when you talk about blockchain, think about this as one block, okay? And that one block is divided into 3 segments. The first part or the first information or this block is the data. It could be any data. Now, because we are more familiar with finance, I'll try to kind of give you an example of that. When we talk about data, and I'm saying, okay, I'm putting a transaction into a blockchain. So that transaction or that data could have simple information like who gave the money, who received the money, and what is the amount of involved in that, right? Similarly, in healthcare, who is the patient, who is the provider, and what is the treatment plan. So any data can be incorporated as part of a block. The second and the most important thing is a hash or a unique ID, which is generated with each and every block. It is very similar to a fingerprint. So only the people who have that hash or a unique ID will have access to that block. And if it is connected to a previous block, what I mean by that, say I started a treatment today and I have got another information or another data that is connected to my first or previous information, it will be linked. So this hash that you see will be linked to the previous block. Only then it will be connected and it will form a chain using the blocks. So remember, there has to be 3 components to make it successful. At any point, if you're starting new, right, then you will not have the hash of a previous block. Having said that, at any point, if say the chain is broken or the unique ID is messed around with, it will kind of red flag, and the new data will not be allowed to enter into the chain, and you will also not be able to change or manipulate anything that has been part of it without going through a proper channel. So as you can see, it is literally trying to be bulletproof, or something that cannot be hacked. And here is how the system works, to go into more details about this. So the technology is out there, but who is going to manage it? And how does this whole process work? So to help you dig deeper into it, it is divided into three segments. So this first group of people that you see is called peer-to-peer network. So basically, there are a group of people, and anybody can join this part of network. Okay, so they're trying to create a peer-to-peer network. So I could be in US, you could be in India, somebody could be in Malaysia, anywhere, and we are creating a whole network or group of people who will get this entire visual of the blockchain. So all of us have exact same data. And if someone wants to add something or delete something, it will be shared with all of us. All of us have to authenticate it, saying, yes, this makes sense. It follows every protocol. There is nothing that has been messed up in this process. Only then you will be able to add this block into the chain. Okay. Now, the question is, okay, this sounds great, but how will this work? So to understand that this is definitely a digital platform, it works with some apps and softwares. So there are many companies from Google to Amazon to IBM who do provide technology that will help develop these blockchain applications and solutions and services. So they are the core, or the people behind, providing ways where engineers can build that technology. And for these people, what is an incentive for them? Like, why will I do, or do all this hard work? Well, their incentive, or the byproduct of this technology, as you are all aware, is the Bitcoin, right? So they are mining the coin and they become the miners. This is like a common term that you'll hear in the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So they are incentivized for doing this work. So every time they authenticate, every time they review, every time they do this check, they get a reward. And in financial sector, it is done through Bitcoin. And Bitcoin can also be, now it's all traded, and there are other ways where people take Bitcoin as very similar to the currency world. They believe that that can actually replace and can be used for this exact same work. Now, another example to help you make this little more user friendly. So there is something concept known as savings club, or many people in India would also be aware. I'm saying India because that's where I have seen and heard. It might be common in your country as well. There is a concept of kitty or kitty parties, especially in like the women in India, where there are a group of people who come together. Everybody will contribute a certain amount, and that they'll have like a fixed amount that they'll contribute. That amount will go to one person on a particular date or for that month. Next time when they meet, it will go to another person, and it keeps going into that group. Now, what they are doing is very similar to the blockchain system. So there are multiple people involved. There is a consensus, meaning everybody is agreed to contribute that fixed amount into that kitty or that savings club. You want to make sure that, say, today, if there are just two people, say me and Fakhruddin are having a transaction, tomorrow he might just deny that, hey, you never paid me anything, or we didn't agree to it, because there are a group of people to validate and to make sure that nobody does any fraud, that things are working the way it is supposed to work. So that person will make sure. So that group will work as a peer-to-peer review, making sure that there is security, because they are all together and everybody is liable for what is happening. There is a provenance, which is you can track back like who got it last time and who is due for the other time, right? And the most important thing is trust, because to do any wrong thing, everybody needs to be involved, which is rare. Like if you are with a group of people who have agreed to be part of the savings club or a kitty. So it is very similar in a very simple layman term think of it as a blockchain where it is decentralized and everybody has access to the information. They are authenticating, it is secure, it is built on trust and not on one person's authority. Now, $1 million question, right? Like, how can this be used in healthcare and eye care? Yeah, you're talking about it, but do you all believe it? Well, while doing this research or putting this presentation together, I actually thought of one very funny scene from a movie called Munna Bhai MBBS. I'm sure all Indians are aware about this movie. If you haven't seen it, it's a great fun movie where this is the one of the most famous dialogues of that movie, which says वो बाहर casualty में कोई मरने की हालत में रहा तो उसको फॉर्म भरना जरूरी है क्या? To translate it for those who haven't seen or don't understand, if someone comes in with a serious condition or like any condition or any accident, is it important to fill up an intake form? Medically speaking, absolutely yes. But this simple scene actually begged us a question, because the person that you see, the actor, is like a gangster trying to become a doctor. He comes with different questions where he doesn't understand why the healthcare system is working in a certain way. He feels that because if I'm sick or I'm serious, if I need medical attention, that is what you should give me. But without data, without a complete intake form, we as practitioners cannot give them the service or the care that is required. You need to understand, is the patient on any treatment? Do they have any previous medical condition? Is there any allergies to any medications that you need to be aware about before giving any treatment plan? So absolutely, it is important to fill up an intake form, but can there be a better system or process that will help us take away this constant redundant paperwork and make it more user-friendly and patient-friendly or patient-centric system? That is one of the most interesting use case of blockchain in eye care or healthcare. Now, the major challenge that we have in healthcare, as I mentioned, is access to data. So today I come in for whatever eye exams, you ask me as a history that, hey, do you have glaucoma? Do you have amblyopia because your vision is not improving? Or did you have any surgeries in the past? Or many of the patients, as you're aware, they don't remember what they did. Many of them don't even have records of their, previous test, previous exams, previous outcomes. And every time they say switch countries, switch places, go to another doctor, it's a restart. And that doctor has no idea of what has happened in the past if the patient doesn't come up with their file or the documentation. So that is one of the major challenges that is prevailing in the healthcare or the eye care sector, that we do not have access to data, or we have very limited access to data. Hospitals and countries, we don't exchange data or patient information easily, and patient does not really own it. It is the hospital or the doctor. Sometimes they'll keep the record with themselves and they might not give it to the patient as well. So that is one major challenge. The other challenge is source of authentication. Now, counterfeits are a huge problem, especially in the drugs and the pharmaceutical industry. And counterfeit medications are known to be like a $200 billion industry. So many people do end up, selling counterfeit drugs, changing the labels, changing the expiry. And there is there's such a large supply chain system there that nobody can really track back that where things went wrong. So say if you are giving an eye drop to a patient, are you 100% sure it is coming from the right resource? Because if you're coming from a distributor took it from someone else, they took it from someone else, and the pharma company doesn't even know that it is changed, or it is a counterfeit and not a real product. Same with frames, like the branded frames, you don't know if they're counterfeits or the originals at times. And even contact lenses, many contact lenses, and as we all are aware, contact lens is a medical product. You want to make sure that any branded contact lenses that you're trying to prescribe to a patient is coming from the right resource. You want to make sure all the information that is shared on that contact lens is authenticated, it is correct, it is right. And this blockchain system will make sure every time it changes or moves from one system to another system, it is authenticated. There are people who says, yes, it is good to go to the next step. Yes, the information is following the trust that is needed in this process. And there is nobody who has tried to kind of, manipulate with the data, or, add something that is not part of that supply chain system. So that's how the source of authentication is, again, a huge challenge which blockchain can come up as a solution. And smart contracts. So every time there is a clinical research, we know that, especially in the medical space, it's like a lot of paperwork that goes back and forth, which can consume a lot of time. It can have a lot of human error and so on and so forth. What if there are smart contracts? And I know we use the word smart very commonly these days. We have all smartphones, smartwatches, smart homes. Everything is becoming smart. So why not make smart contracts? When we say the word smart contracts, what we want to do is basically create like one contract which is owned by the patient, and they decide how they want their information to be used for research. And they are the one who will authenticate and give permission to research companies, pharma companies, hospitals. So as a patient, you have an ownership to give authority to, or to whoever you want to share that information. Also, it also has a great feature of anonymizing the information. So even though it is part of that ledger or the blockchain system, you can anonymize it, and people will just authenticate or review and make sure things are in place. But it doesn't have to know your information or like your name or your demographics. So it's just there to make sure nothing or no information has been manipulated. So though these are the three major challenges or the areas which are considered and looked closely for, incorporating blockchain into our eye care healthcare systems. Now, here's a little more detail. I actually covered a lot in my previous slide, but as you can see, the patient is the owner of the data, okay? Or you are the owner of the data if you are putting that information on the block, right? So it could be patient, it could be practitioner, it could be hospital, it could have multiple blocks and multiple blockchain, right? So what you're trying to do is basically you have all the data. There is like a one common login digital health profile. Now, when as patient, you are trying to share information or review things that, hey, this medication that came in, is it coming from the right source? Well, you have access to the supply chain. You can review and make sure it is authentic, it is the right drug, and it is not a counterfeit. Same when you are trying, if someone is trying to use your information or have your patient's information used in any research, you want to be aware as a clinician, as a patient, that, hey, did I approve? Did I give the access to these research institutions to review things? Same with insurance and payment providers, hospitals and doctors. So coming back to that slide about the movie and the famous dialogue that I mentioned earlier, if you are you know uh, part of some serious condition, or you had some accident, god forbid, you don't have to worry about giving that information about your health and your history, family history, medical history to the doctor. All you have to do is log into your digital health profile and give access to the doctor, and they can review everything from there. Very important thing is, say today you have diabetes, but you didn't have that 6 months earlier, and the paper that you have or that you're showing is not showing that you have diabetes, and the doctor treats you or finds some other solution, which could be a counter indication in diabetes. So with these multiple separate data that is being spread across, there is no way to make sure that every information is being captured. And this digital health profile, because it is constantly updated, it is done in real time, and it is like in a way where all information is centralized, as I had mentioned in my really first second slide, like centralized ledger. All the information is coming into your personal digital health profile or the account, so that you're aware that you don't have to worry about what was done yesterday, what was done 6 months ago, what was done 6 years ago. All the information is in one place for you, available through an app, through some system that allows easy access of information to whoever needs to see things, and you decide who will get access to that data. Now, why we all have to understand this and why it is important, because as you're aware, there are many countries who are actually getting involved in this space, though they might have some resistance and hesitation of what they want to allow and what they do not wish to allow. But there are many countries like US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, who have all advocated and are talking about incorporating blockchain and things into different sectors in different sectors in their country. Now, for people those who are from India would know that there is this system called Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, or they call it ABHA, which is one step closer to our digital health ecosystem. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to create or have one account number or a login, and all your information about your healthcare can be uploaded into this one centralized system, which is managed by the government of India. Now, this is just one step closer to blockchain. This is still controlled and managed by the Indian government. Okay. So even though there is a centralized pooling of data, it is managed by the government. That is closer to blockchain. It is not completely blockchain, because blockchain believes in decentralizing. Basically, nobody is an owner of it. Only the person who has, like the patient is the owner of the data, and not one person has an authority. But this, you can say, is one step closer to bringing all medical records together under one roof, under one system. So if you're ever, God forbid, unwell, you don't have to constantly remember what treatment was done, what treatment you need, what's the problem, what's your family history. You just log in, give that information to the doctor, or they can just have access to that information based on your availability of data in this system, and they can pull every information out here and plan and give correct treatment at the right time. So let's talk about, though however fascinating it sounds, we definitely have a lot of benefits and a lot of limitations as well. So talking about benefits, as I mentioned, there is no one owner of the data, right? Because it is decentralized, everybody has an authority and say in it, making sure it is secure, it is not hackable. In case of, say, in finance, I feel like everybody is thinking and worried about money. So today we have a lot of authority to the banks and like the federal government, because we say, okay, you know what, I trust you. If I'm saying I have so much amount in my bank, you will honor that, and you'll make sure that is still staying there. Tomorrow, if the federal government decides to say, hey, you know what, no, you have $0 in your account, there is no way for you to fight back, right? Because you've given entire authority to that one entity. With blockchain, there is no one entity, nothing. Like, they're trying to make it hack proof, and there are multiple records and multiple people who have that information. Thus, it makes it more distributed trust versus centralized trust. Coming to my next point, when it is distributed trust, it is very difficult to manipulate it, because there are many people involved, which require a lot of consensus, and you can track back every step, because everything is kind of digitally stamped, right? Because everybody has agreed to it. Now, this system is going to move or shift the healthcare towards more patient-centric, which is definitely the way how things are moving in the industry overall. Even when I talk about telehealth, this is one of my favorite terms, being patient-centric versus physician-centric. We have to understand that, like, say, it's very common where people say, like, customer is the king. Similarly, it is time for us to understand that a patient is the king. Your patient has to be in the center of the solution to make sure they are successful, they are more compliant, they have better treatment. So always try to think of patient first. And we want to democratize healthcare. Today, we are aware that, what will come in the country, what treatment can you provide, what will be the pricing of the products. Everything is being controlled by some major entities. We want to make sure how can we democratize healthcare, remove issues that can, affect or impact the way this system works. Of course, there are a lot of breaks and a lot of things that can be fixed using this blockchain. As you can only imagine this is just the beginning of this revolutionary technology. None of us would have thought that, I would be giving these webinars online when if you remember something in say 1990s, people would, or 2000s, people would be like, hey, what is internet? It is very similar, like when internet came in, or when there was dial-up internet services, then came Wi-Fi, and now it's like almost free Wi-Fi everywhere. You can't survive without Wi-Fi. But when those technologies and terms came up, it was very alien. Similarly, blockchain is still pretty alien in many, many industry. So when you talk about the limitation, one of the major limitation is the shift in the culture, changing the mindset, trying to learn these new things and understand how it will work. There are a lot of gaps that people still have to understand. Also, just as we saw even in the survey that we did, or the poll that we did initially, most of you did not have information about it, or had very limited knowledge, right? So we all need to upgrade and update our knowledge. It is a new technology, and thus it is hard to implement. So on paper, conceptually, it looks great, but how do you actually make it happen? How do you make sure things are secure? How do you make sure that the people are doing what they're supposed to do? There is no hack in the system. There is trust. There is tracking system available. So there's a lot that needs to go to make sure that we can implement this new technology in place. There are definitely legal limitations. Many countries do feel, they like some part of the blockchain, but they do dislike some part of the blockchain. So there are a lot of legal limitations as well, and new laws are or will be designed around this technology. So we have to be prepared for what's coming in the future. And also there's like a lot of research needed of how can we start incorporating the system into Eyecare. And I'm looking forward to see what more we can do in this space. Now, what can we do today to help us get prepared for tomorrow? One of the most important things that I feel, which many of us in Eyecare do struggle, is the importance of digitizing the data. Without digitizing the data, or having an electronic medical health record system, you cannot move to blockchain or these further technologies. So one simple thing that you can do today is make sure that whatever information that you're collecting from the patient is saved in a digital format. You can't have like papers and papers of stuff. Everything has to be digitized to help you incorporate more and better technologies for the future. Right? I know, like we started, if you think about finance, the reason I come back to it, because it has really advanced a lot. We used to carry like cash earlier, then we moved to credit cards, and now we use like tap services where you just like tap your phone and your payment is done. Your phone is like basically your credit card or your wallet. You don't need them anymore. And many places you can scan and pay through WeChat and Venmo and PayPal and Google Pay and stuff, right? So you have seen how technology has grown so much in the last few years. But you can't have all these technology if you go with cash everywhere, right? You will need to have a bank account, you'll need to have a credit card, you'll have so on and so forth. So start digitizing your data today wherever you're practicing. Where if you're a student and once you're out in the practice, start thinking of how can you help the practice to digitize that data. And you need to start that today. Trust me, we are all already too late to this party. Then we are aware that these changes are coming, and before it gets mandated, let's start digitalizing every possible aspect of our service. With cryptocurrency becoming a lot more famous, there might be options or ways where payments would be collected through cryptocurrencies. So let us also make sure we understand how these systems work and prepare ourselves to offer these kind of services, because we as industry could be little slow in adapting. But as we have all seen and experienced during COVID, patients are pretty quick with technology. They're like ready, and they can navigate things really well and fast. So you don't want to be not be able to be updated with technology and not offer that service. because that will really impact what you can offer. And you don't want to do that. You always want to be on the top of the game and provide the best services and solutions to your patients. And as part of research as well, it could be a part of an accepted format. So for all the researchers and like people who are doing PhDs, or even just interested in research overall, this could be a great format where everything is just placed in one location. You don't have to go back and forth getting all the signatures, making sure you are compliant with whatever rules and regulations that are required. So we want to make sure that we are starting step by step to prepare for the future. One very nice quote that I've heard from one of the companies that I worked with, called Eiley, they do talk about like future proofing your practice. And I think it is very important today than ever before to start future proofing our practices or our industry overall. With that, thank you so much for your time, for being part of this session. I really appreciate this opportunity. And if you have any questions, please drop them in and we can discuss it. Or if you have any experience, any thoughts, not just questions, but if you also have any comments, please feel free to share to it. And I'll be happy to have discussions. Fakhruddin, I think that should be okay, right? We can have discussions.
Yes. But before that, thank you so much, Ukti, for taking us through for the blockchain, how it is globally in terms of healthcare, and giving us the gist and idea of how it is been incorporated in Eyecare and how we can play a part in incorporating this in Eyecare at our personal level, starting from digitalization is the first step, if I may put it that way. So things are coming out really fast, and we need to adapt to it. We do understand that in other forms, like as Ukti was saying, last time we had these dial-up connections, now it's Wi-Fi and all of that. Same for the personal use. So it is coming, and it's coming faster than ever before, I would say. So we need to get adapted to it, right?
Absolutely. Like everybody is using these AR, VR, AI, machine learning, all these technologies. These technologies, even if you think, like, of course, we are bombarded with all these newer buzzwords, and it could be overwhelming. But being part of a healthcare industry or industry that is very patient or consumer oriented, we cannot step away from that. If we do that, we'll definitely be behind in the race as an industry overall. So we have to be updated, and we want to make sure that Eyecare does not come as like the last to the party. We want to make sure that we are at par with all the other specialties, whether it is radiology, dentistry, cardiology, so on and so forth. We want optometry to be there as well.
Right. Yeah, that is really important. Just to get the ball rolling, Ukti, just one thing which I kind of had, because we always are worried about, I think you did cover that part also. We are worried about data protection and data privacy, right? Anything in specific when it comes to, let's say, just taking an example of electronic medical records, right? So anything in specific is your suggestions we would be taking into mind while we want to incorporate these EMR systems, or kind of putting patients' data into medical records. Do you have any suggestions or kind of advice that we should be doing this way and we should try to avoid this way, just for the data protection perspective?
Absolutely. I think one most common thing to look out for any time that you're trying to use any system, whether it is a video calling system or whether it's an EMR system, especially involving patient data, because please understand, patient data and patient privacy is extremely important and a serious topic to kind of understand the importance of it. We're always looking for a HIPAA compliant or like a secured platform. So for example, you cannot use like Google Meet or those kind of like WhatsApp video calling for your medical consultation. You want to try and use more secure platform where the information is not there are less chances of information getting I would say leaked, or the patient privacy is
Use of
hampered.
the- yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely one very important thing, that you want to make sure that you don't share patient information without the consent. And any software that says they are HIPAA compliant, I think that is a good place to start with for sure. And one other thing to add in this space of blockchain is what you put as a data into this blockchain is also very important. Of course, you can put anything and everything you like, but once it is out there, it is there forever, right? Because it's a permanent chain. So you don't want to just keep dumping data. You want to make sure that you are deciding what you want to kind of record and track, just so that it adds more value in the system whenever it comes. So think about it as like something that you want to be permanently there, like timestamp, like patient's information, like the treatment that you gave them, allergies, or family history. Those are the things you want to be part of the patient system or record in this blockchain forever. So for whatever reason, if they ever are in any situation, the doctors don't have to kind of search and try and find things. It to be just like at a tip of their fingers to kind of just tap and find that.
Right, and it will make practitioners' life easier as well, because you have all the information, and it becomes an evidence for your own practice as well. I would put it in that way in clinical practice, right? That you have 10 patients who have treated and worked out well. It becomes your own evidence, which you can use it for your clinical expertise in the future.
So, yeah, absolutely. And it will, because it is all centralized. Or I mean, I would say it is decentralized because you don't own it, but it is in one place. So it is centralized in that format. But yes, you have actually nailed it by saying that, all that information is in one place. You don't have to go back and forth asking for different paperwork and consent and signatures, which can take like 4-5 days or even months at times. This is something that it is like literally like one click and everybody can review it. Everybody can sign it. Everybody can like have information at one place.
Right. Wonderful. So I think with that, thank you so much, Ukti, for taking up this topic. Usually it's more of a clinical oriented talk, but this is something which leads to a better clinician, I would say, so to know what is happening and how to incorporate and go in those lines. So thank you so much, Ukti, for sharing your experience and expertise with us today.
Thank you so much once again for the opportunity. For anyone who wants to reach out to me, even for later times, if you have any questions, if you want to connect and chat, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to, discuss this further.
Most welcome. We do have session planned over a couple of weeks' time. Until then, take care, be safe, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Ukti. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.